Surprise! Blizzard gave us another PTR weekend! 'Twas the night before Halloween, and all through the neighborhood, the guildies were decorating and landscaping their yards good. Blizzard said trick or treat this year, and the trick was convincing me that, if I run Horsemen for 2 weeks straight all through Hollow's End, I will get them out, and I didn't, and I feel normal about this. But for a treat, they gave us another weekend of housing on the PTR. And this go around, they wanted us to test guild neighborhoods. So they asked everyone to join up in massive guilds so that they could stress test the system. And thus, the Wowkia PTR Guild was created. We got to work making the best neighborhood Blizzard could ask us for. Which did happen, but first I soft-locked myself out of the neighborhood until they turned on house moving 2 days later. Entirely through user error. Live on stream. I'm sure they will take a look at that process. And as long as house moving is turned on, it shouldn't be a problem for anyone else. It'll be fine, I'm sure. And while plenty of Wowkia members have created amazing houses that deserve to be celebrated and featured, there's simply too many to go through right now. Here's some of them, but this is nowhere near all of the incredible things that were made this weekend. The more houses that people make, the better and better they get at the system, and the bigger their creative visions become. And waterfalls. Waterfalls were all the rage this weekend. So if you want to make your own waterfall, these videos here have you covered. I'll link them below. Looking at this PTR footage, you might be thinking to yourself, gosh, that's a lot of house you've got built there. How did they do that with the limited decor budgets? And you'd be right. A lot about the system has changed since my last video. It's a very exciting time to be a housing enjoyer. Decor budgets are going up. Room placement costs have given us some breathing room. And what is that? Is that a skybox room? That is a skybox room. Dear viewer, we are going over the news because, whew, there is a lot of it. Our top story, decor and room budgets have increased. Yes, you heard me right. Everyone who was worried after the last video can now breathe a sigh of relief, or at least momentarily pause their doom spiral. You now have plenty of space to pile up the new rocks that they added to the catalog this week. Because at the current max rank, the interior decor budget is 2,050 points, and the room placement budget is 43 points. The room still costs the same, but you can get double the amount of house that you could last build. This is a big improvement over the last limits of 825 and 24 respectively, so thank you devs! By the way, if you want to play around with how many rooms you can get out of a 43-point room budget, check out the WoW Database Housing Hub's Room Planner tool. Even if PTR is down and beta hasn't started yet, you can combine rooms to your heart's content just in your browser while you wait very patiently for December 2nd. Yes, our lucky numbers are 2050 and 43, and for the exterior, it's still 200. Yeah, it's still 200. Again, this is a technical limitation. We've heard from the devs that it's because of neighborhood performance. I don't have a lot of hope that this will increase much at all. Otherwise, you might get a neighborhood infestation of biblically accurate lawn horrors, so probably for the best. One bright spot here is that the cost of many of the foliage items have decreased, which at least lets you pack that 200 decor limit with as many flowers as you can possibly fit in. If you are coming to WoW Housing for a yard work simulator, the devs are doing whatever they can to enable you. Now they just need to add lawnmowers and leaf blowers and power washers, and we'll hit every sort of simulator game. So what else might have decreased this week? Warfront item costs. If you don't know, many of the decor pieces from past expansions cost legacy currency, which is great when you have a whole store of them piling up dust in your bags. But what if that currency is annoyingly hard to get? Blizz has tuned the numbers for the most egregiously expensive items in the housing system, the Forsaken-themed decor that is being awarded from BFA Warfronts. Some of these items originally cost 300 tokens, and remember, that's just for the one item. That's just one tent. If you want 2 tents, that's 600. If you wanted the whole set, that would have been over 1,200 tokens. But fear not, Blizz have nerfed these costs, which is good news for all of us who don't want to be organizing raid groups for legacy content for the next 5 years. Remember, Warfronts still need to be queued for, and they can't be soloed. You need to enter with a full group to be able to do them. Forsaken Gang, I'm still sorry, but at least your house is going to look so cool when you have it all decked out. You know what else is cool? And I can bury the lead no longer because have you seen the reward for hitting rank 3 on your housing renown? The Daylight Circle Room. It gets better, it gets better, it gets better. There's also an Evening Circle Room at rank 5. I don't think anyone has actually managed to reach there yet, or at least screenshots have not crossed my feed. So what we've learned from the Daylight one is it's a medium-sized room. It seems to be about 4 stories tall. That's what people have learned trying to build up to go over it. Right now, it can only be placed at the end of corridors because it only has one entrance. Despite it having a skybox overhead, it's weirdly dimly lit. Not sure if that's intended or they just have some additional lighting to implement, but it's a thing. Update, there's been a new build and they have indeed added lights to this room, so now it is brighter and sunnier in the Daylight Circle Room. Most excitingly, these 2 are labeled artisanal rooms, which implies the existence of other insane interiors down the line. I see you all asking, what kind of skyboxes are in our future? And I think that's the wrong question. I want to know what other sorts of weirdness Blizz is up to. Can I put an ocean in my house? Please. Can we turn the gravity upside down for real? Can we make it snow indoors for our Winter Vale Wonderlands? Skyboxes aren't limited to rooms, by the way. Data mined last week was a new ceiling appearance that seemed to have a Tauran or Orcish vibe. And it has a skybox built in around the model. And this is a ceiling, not a room, keep in mind. So when is this coming? We don't know. What we do know is that the housing team is cooking. So what else is boiling away in the dev pot? Dyes. PTR players got to test dyes this weekend after being given easy access to them right in the neighborhood hub. We learned that they are quite handy for changing the default look of the basic sets, which is great because I was getting a little tired of the default Alliance Blue and this generic purple elfie set. We also learned that buying up one of every color dye fills up your bags to bursting, so you'll want to be tactical with how you acquire and use them, at least until you hit the bug where you apply a dye to an item and it disappears in a puff of smoke. You might want some backups in that case. Once they fix this, I'm sure players will embrace the dyes for their creative potential. A bit of orange dye and your pillows can now be pumpkins, or bead curtains, or a duvet cover. Speaking of what you can do in the neighborhood hub now, there are a couple of very short quests that show players where the decor vendors are in the neighborhood. Lizabelle and Tocho will direct you to the faction vendors, the elven decor vendors, and the smugglers. I'm sorry, plant guys, I'm sure the players will find you when they get hit by the waterfall craze and realize you're the only ones that can sell them rocks. This quest is intended to level you up to house rank 2 immediately, which means you get to visit the neighborhood foreman and his house full of guys. How many does he keep in there? Are they all in some sort of carpentry polycule? Where do they sleep? What sort of interesting beds are they building? I have questions. So after all of this, how do guild neighborhoods work? Guild masters can create a guild neighborhood. It needs to be the neighborhood that corresponds to the faction they are, so if your guild leader is Alliance, they will make an Alliance guild neighborhood. The guild master gets to name it, and that shows up in your house address. So our Wowkia neighborhood, I just called it Wowkia, so everyone's houses were like 49 Wowkia. I might have added an extra word or two if I knew that, but luckily you can change this later. And if you end up making a neighborhood and putting your house in the wrong neighborhood by accident, like me, this can also be fixed. Once the guild neighborhood is created, any guildie who zones into Founder's Point or Razorwind Shores without a house already built will be put in the guild neighborhood shard. So they will be in the right spot. Both Horde and Alliance characters can purchase plots, but only if they are in the guild. If you leave the guild, you'll be moved out of the guild neighborhood. Subdivisions will be created when there are enough houses purchased, and subdivisions are additional copies of the neighborhood. This board near the steward shows you what plots everyone has chosen and what subdivision they live in. Right now, it seems like you can visit other subdivisions by grouping with someone and then right-clicking their name and hitting Visit House, or you can use the House Finder to port you to the subdivision you're looking for. I'm wondering how that's going to work if all of the houses in the House Finder are taken, and then there's no way to easily hop there, but I'm sure there's an answer to this. Either it's coming or I just didn't find it. Honestly, this all sounds kind of complicated, but once you're actually in there, it's pretty intuitive. One thing to note is that once the neighborhood is created, it's a free-for-all for all the plots in there. So to all the guild officers out there, you might decide to dole out houses like DKP, or make some sort of lottery system that I've heard some guilds are doing, or just embrace the chaos. If multiple people pick the same house, I think that's okay. It seems to maybe trigger a new subdivision. Not sure about that. Need to test it further. But at first blush, this should let everyone have the house that they want. And speaking of testing, we learned that beta is November 11th and Midnight pre-patch seems to be set to release about late January. That is so fast, I can't believe it. So in the spirit of speed, let me answer some housing FAQs for folks that will be trying out housing for the very first time on beta in a few days. Say you're a WoW fan. If you're not, I really don't know how you found me. And you've pre-ordered Midnight to get your hands on that sweet, sweet beta access. Maybe you haven't been following player housing closely. Maybe you're not sure if it's for you. Maybe you're overwhelmed by all of this. That's okay. Here are all of the frequently answered answers you'll need about housing. Where can I get Decor? Tons of places. Asking this is kind of like asking, where can I get transmog? The answer is pretty much everywhere. There's just so much of it that it's really hard to make a concise list. So start with the vendors in your neighborhood, then check out community sites like the WoW Database Housing Hub for some good places to start. Since Decor comes from vendors and also from achievements and also from drops, if you go looking for it, I'm sure you'll find it. Can I move my house entryway? No, you always spawn into this room, and this room can't be moved. Even if you moved the door, you still spawn into the same spot. And if you delete the door, people can't get out of your house, so use that information as you will. Can we test Night Elf and Blood Elf house customizations? Yes, this is apparently happening from weeks 2 to 3 in the beta. Night Elf and Blood Elf housing will be available. Why can't I put lights outside? They're being optimized, and they'll be back after early access release. Don't worry, we'll have our string lights back very soon. Is my beta house going to be deleted? Yes, so don't get too attached. How can I get housing ideas? Look at what the housing community has already built. You'll probably get struck by inspiration. And there's no better place to see the community's greenest thumbs and greasiest elbows than the WoWkia Discord. I mentioned earlier that there was a new build, so here's all the details on that. New this week are some new items as usual, as well as some updated textures for floors and walls, notably replacing the folk flooring and the flagstone flooring. They've also allowed building outside with the platforms that were previously restricted to only indoor use. So this is big news for everyone who wanted to build a deck. There's also news about a new real money currency coming. It's called Hearthsteel, and all we really know about it is the little write-up the devs have done where they promise that it won't have scammy tactics and they want it to be consumer friendly, and I want to take their word for it, but the community, as you can imagine, is skeptical. So I guess we'll see how this works, and I'm sure more videos about this will be coming soon. Lastly, as you can probably hear, there's been new music released for the neighborhood soundtracks, both indoors and outdoors. So that's super exciting. Go have a listen. Wowhead has all the tracks and they're all lovely. That's everything I can think of offhand. So if you have any housing questions, throw them in the comments, or even better, go straight to the experts in the WoWkia Discord. We just hit 1,000 members. It's an excellent little community. All right, so it's beta time. Go forth and build. I want to see what you've made. I hope you have so much fun. And in the meantime, how about you like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all that jazz, and find me on Blue Sky and Discord. Thank you.